like some of the reflexes. So I was saying, I'm going to get some of those reflexes. Hello. Let's see if I can just like easily search them. Have you guys heard of any of these reflexes before by newborn babies?
We talked about a few of them last time.
Right, yeah. I guess crawling's an easy one. Walking and crawling is easy one to kind of know what they are. Let's see if I can do this. Dear Lord, these I feel like it's a lot of junk emails that you get throughout the day. Let's see. You hear it blowing up and you're like, is that an important email? Do I really need to pay attention to it? What date do you guys return to your hometown in Russia?
In May, we have 2 semesters.
Oh, really? So you won't even go home for Christmas?
No, we're not allowed.
Holy crap. Which I guess is a big festival day in.
But we will like have the opportunity to understand how it's going here, so not too bad. We have like an idea to go to New York, but I'm not sure we can afford it. But the idea is not bad.
Right. That's so interesting.
And what is the holiday that will be soon, like next Monday?
Labor Day.
What is it?
That's hard to explain, but it has, oh, look at what happened when rooting. Basically like the origins of labor, like respecting the 40-hour work week and like kind of the stuff we talked about in Intro to Social Work last week. So let's see if this is good. Sometimes I pick them and they're terrible, and sometimes they're okay. Let's hope it's not terrible. It's probably about 100 years old. No, it might not have been a holiday till 50 years ago.
Before a company. It's interesting that Oregon, a machinist first proposed John Bona.
I don't want to skip anything. Okay, there we go.
Welcome back to the Story of Liberty. This is John Bona. You know, the year was 1882 when a man named Matthew McGuire, a machinist, first proposed Labor Day while serving as a secretary for a company. It's interesting that Oregon was the first state to make it a holiday in 1887.
Jeez.
By the time it became a federal holiday in 1894, 30 states officially celebrated Labor Day. It's also interesting that George Pullman, who founded the Pullman Railroad Sleeping Car Company in Chicago in 1893, was very successful, but right at that time there was a nationwide recession that kicked in, and orders for his new railroad sleeping cars declined. Unfortunately, like today, many people lost their jobs, some were laid off. The ones that stayed had to take a cut in wages, and for the cost of living stayed the same or increased. Workers were dismayed. A young worker by the name of Eugene Debs, he led a strike against the Pullman Company, and railroad workers across the nation boycotted the Pullman cars. There was rioting and the burning of railroad cars, and it became a national issue when even the mail was interrupted. The president at the time, Grover Cleveland, declared the strike a federal crime, deployed 12,000 troops to break up the strike. Men were killed in the disruption. Well, it was Congress ultimately that voted to approve rush legislation, and they made Labor Day a national holiday. Cleveland signed it into law a mere 6 days later at the end of the strike. It was an election year, and Grover Cleveland knew that it would help his reelection if he appeased the workers, so he pushed for a national Labor Day. He chose the first Monday in September. This holiday of Labor Day is often regarded as a day of rest and parties. It's a big retail day too, to take advantage of the large numbers of customers free to go shopping. It's become an important sale weekend for many retailers in America. Some retailers claim one of the largest sale days of the year, second only to the Christmas season. Labor Day has come to be celebrated by most of us here as a symbolic end to summer. Yes, it's back to school. Labor Day was considered the last day of the year when it was in fashion to wear white or seersucker. I don't see anybody wearing seersucker anymore. In sports, Labor Day marks the beginning of NFL and college football. College football, they usually play their first games of the week before Labor Day. The NFL traditionally playing their first game Thursday following Labor Day. Welcome to football, guys. Here we go.
Anybody a football fan here? I'm like kind of neutral with it. I'm like whatever.
I watched my game like a few days ago for the first time, and that's football. By the end of the game, we figured out what was going on.
Yeah. So does that answer your question? Oh, I don't know if that's a helpful. It's pretty long. Maybe the History Channel would be better. This is just a few minutes, but I didn't realize that was like
She takes a picture, and in that picture is this ET.
extraterrestrial.
That's the camera.
Uh-oh. We have aliens.
The Industrial Revolution modernized the United States and Canada during the 19th century. As people enjoyed steady employment, they compromised their rights in the workplace. Longer work hours and pay cuts were imposed. U.S. labor groups began protecting themselves by unionizing. In Canada, unions were illegal until 1872, when thousands of Ottawa laborers marched to Prime Minister John Macdonald's home. That year, Canada wiped the anti-union law from its books, and the march became an annual Canadian tradition. In 1882, Toronto labor officials invited an American union leader, Peter J. McGuire, to Toronto's labor celebrations. McGuire was so impressed that he suggested a workers' parade to New York City's Central Labor Union. He chose September 5th as the date because it filled the long void between July 4th and Thanksgiving. Coincidentally, that same year, a machinist from Paterson, New Jersey, Matthew McGuire, also proposed the laborers' celebration. On Tuesday, September 5th, 1882, thousands of New York City laborers marched from City Hall to Union Square. They gathered in Reservoir Park for an afternoon of picnics, concerts, and speeches rallying for an 8-hour workday.
So this is also kind of the start of social work. I know it's more for the intro class. Did you take your intro to social work class here yet? Is that what year did you take it last year? I guess.
Like fall 2020.
Okay, it probably would have been either me or the other. Okay, so this is kind of how we started. So I know social work didn't really start until like the 1900s, but the fight for an 8-hour workday, and we talk about the correlation between. They also began to have motor engines in that time, and they'll have John Deere tractors and like the big things to grow food, and that was able to get rid of like humans working so many hours throughout the day to like harvest the fields and to make. Well, they were making cars here, so the men who had the money would work you to death if they could, but the point was protesting, saying we're not going to work at all unless if you make it an 8-hour day. And social workers were big advocates for that, and a few others. So it is interesting that it kind of correlates to the same time frame as social workers starting.
2 years later, the Central Labor Union moved the parade to the first Monday in September. They also encouraged all U.S. cities to follow New York's lead, and marched for the working man's holiday. For many, the choice was to either spend the day at work or march without pay. That began to change when Oregon became the first state to legalize the Labor Day holiday in 1887. Other states, including New York, soon followed. It took a political disaster to put Labor Day on the national calendar. In 1894, railway workers in Pullman, Illinois went on strike to protest wage cuts. President Grover Cleveland faced pressure to end the demonstrations and sent 12,000 federal troops to break the strike. Violence erupted. 2 strikers were killed, and Cleveland's harsh methods made headlines. In an attempt to appease the nation's workers, he signed a bill to make Labor Day a federal holiday. Cleveland still lost that year's election.
I think we
America's
lost
workers
it.
continued to gain power through the 1950s, when over a third of all labor forces were unionized. Labor Day had become a time to rally workers for safer conditions, fair pay, and benefits. But in the second half of the 20th century, the U.S. labor force diminished. Many factories closed. Jobs were outsourced to other countries. Today, workers still parade through blue-collar neighborhoods on Labor Day, and speeches unite the ever-dwindling labor force.
So that's another important point I wanted to make. Most of our jobs making things have left. You guys probably know where they went to. I'd say mostly China and Asia. What's that?
Indonesia, Bangladesh.
Even like Latin America, we had a lot of sweatshops there. So I don't know what to say about that. But the truth is, we still advocate for that 40-hour work week, 8-hour work day. It's like social workers' dignity for the human person, and why we do that.
But the day's true call has quieted. For now, most Americans leisurely enjoy the holiday as summer's last battle.
Oh yeah, pool's closed now on that day. Yeah, a lot of them do. I mean, it could stay warm enough up here, but I don't know. Are you guys from around here in Ohio? Okay. Are you from around here?
Detroit.
So they might even close earlier in Detroit if it gets colder, but it's probably usually they open Memorial Day and close on Labor Day. So
It did get significantly colder on the 1st of September.
yeah, it did. It really did. You're right. We had that hurricane rain come in. That's crazy. I'm teaching you social work 101. All right. So that's what I was looking for. Routine as a child. So some of the things, you guys have probably seen these. Baby rooting. Basically, it's when you're breastfeeding, and this tells the baby to open its mouth at mom. And this is a reflex. It's like every baby has it. I don't know if they're going to talk or not. So it's for breastfeeding. I kind of want something a bit more informational, but like if you're holding the baby trying to feed it and touch the breast to it, it'll feed. So that way it doesn't starve to death. And that's just like a natural reflex.
Newborns are capable of communicating with their parents and caregivers from the moment of birth. When a baby is born, he or she comes to us already equipped with many capabilities needed to survive in this world. Some of these capabilities are known as newborn reflexes, which are an infant's automatic responses to certain stimuli in their environment. These reflexes are developed in the womb over time, which is why they're most often seen in healthy, full-term newborns. While these automatic responses will be seen in an infant for the first several weeks to 1 year of life, the newborn reflexes eventually transition from being automated into actions that are consciously controlled by the baby. In this video, we will review the root.
I know. I think the idea of that is to make them feel like they're back in the womb. I don't really know. It's kind of weird.
Step,
We never did that
newborn
with our
reflexes.
babies.
Each of these play a role in a newborn's growth and development. The root reflex can be seen when one of the newborn's cheeks or corner of the mouth is gently touched or stroked. The baby's automatic response is to turn their head toward the touch and open the mouth. The baby appears to be searching for something with their mouth or rooting. Since babies are very nearsighted at birth, this reflex helps them find their food source.
That's right. Did you know babies can only see 9 inches? So that's another one. Like if you're breastfeeding, you can look into the eyes of your infant, but that's kind of like their first vision is pretty bad.
Whether it be mother's breast or the nipple of a bottle. The suck reflex is triggered when the roof of the baby's mouth is touched. The touch can come from a mother's breast, a bottle nipple, pacifier, and even their own hand. The sucking is baby's instinctive skill to feed himself. It is important to note here that the suck reflex isn't fully developed in the womb until about the 36th week of pregnancy, which is why preterm infants or preemies can oftentimes have a weak suck and difficulty feeding. There are other factors that can affect a newborn's ability to suck, such as tongue tie, cleft lip and cleft palate, and even infection. Tonic neck reflex is sometimes called the fencing position because the baby's upper body seems to move into a pose or stance seen in the sport of fencing. When baby's head is turned to one side, the arm on that side stretches out, and the opposite arm comes up to form an L shape. These descriptions make it seem like the tonic neck reflex will be a dramatic pose, but it's often a very subtle response. Don't worry if you do not notice this reflex in your baby. It may be produced better while an infant is breastfeeding, but even then it can be difficult to see. This reflex is just a protective factor for newborns, so there's no need to disturb them while they rest. The grasp reflex is much easier to see. When an object such as a finger, rattle, or blanket touches the palm of a newborn's hand, it's his innate response to wrap the fingers tightly around the object. This is the palmar grasp. You can even lay your fingers across the ball of the baby's foot and see the toes curl tight. This is called the plantar grasp. The step, or walking reflex, is thought to develop muscles for walking later in life. This reflex is prompted by holding the baby upright under the arms while supporting the neck. When you hold the baby in this position and bring their dangling feet to a flat surface, their natural response is to alternate lifting up each foot in a stepping fashion. It looks like the baby is walking or dancing. The moral reflex is also known as the startle reflex because it's caused by just that. When a newborn is startled by a loud sound or sudden movement, they immediately jerk their arms and legs outward and then bring them back towards the center of the body. Depending on what position they're in, the newborn's head can even extend backward during this response. Babies can even activate this reflex when they get startled by their own cry. This is a safety mechanism for the baby to protect himself from harm. In addition to growth and development, these reflexes play a key role in the newborn's safety. For example, the Moro reflex allows babies to wake easily in order to retrieve oxygen, nutrients, and food. The tonic neck reflex protects the newborn's small, fragile airways from being covered by outside objects. The root and suck reflexes help baby get to the breast for bonding and feeding. Please note that we do not expect you to test these reflexes on your newborn. As parents and caretakers, we can learn about our baby's inherent reflexes and abilities so we can be prepared to take care of them in the safest way possible.
I don't know what that sled thing is. I mean, I get it, but it's still kind of weird because. So that is kind of the quick view of all these different reflexes. I was just going to say, do they name any of these? Or I should say, do they name all of these? Doll's eye is kind of creepy, but I'll show you. You're like, what the heck is going on? So this one is, a lot of these are really quick.
They mentioned it somehow, but maybe they called it another way, like baby's grandma.
As leader, we believe in foods that taste.
Oh yeah, they might have named it something else, but I'll show. The doll's eye is really creepy. I'll show you that next.
Hey everyone, it's Sarah, registerednursern.com, and in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to assess the palmar grasp reflex in a newborn. Palmar means we're talking about the hand. So this reflex deals with something with the hand. So you can get a response out of the infant whenever you place a finger or you stroke the inside of the infant's palm. And whenever you do this, the hand will close around it. This tends to disappear around about 4 to 6 months of age. Okay, so that wraps up this video on how to assess
There you
the
go.
palmar grasp
There you
reflex
have
in a newborn. And be sure to check out the other videos in this series.
The doll's eye is so creepy. Did they not talk about that one either? Okay. We'll get it. Oh, I hate these commercials. All right, here we go. Because that's a big one too. I want to find the super creepy one. Oh, here we go. This is the creepy one I remember. Probably because there's no words. It's like the dolls that only open up when you lift them up. Maybe it's the music too. It's like Chucky. Have you seen dolls that do that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Right.
I've never seen newborns doing this.
Right. Yeah. I forget why. Maybe there's somebody that actually explains it. Well, here you go. Mini lecture. Lucky I don't have to know all this stuff because I'm not that smart.
If you put sugar into a carved out onion, this is a remedy
Sick.
as old as time.
Sounds kind of gross. They got the creepy music too, kind of. Annabelle, isn't that? Crap. I don't know if I
In India, they get
can. You guys understand that? Yeah. Okay. I don't understand that. I forget why it's it's an actual horror movie. It looks like. I don't know why they do that. I don't know if maybe that's also a safety thing where they wake up when they're lifted up so that they, you know what I mean? I forget why that is.
When you say they can only see 9 inches, what do you mean?
Like it's all fuzzy. So if they're looking at something, they might see a light across the room, but their focus is usually it's so you could see mom that you're breastfeeding with. That's
They only see like 9 inches and the rest is like blurry.
right. It's like very, very blurry for the first several weeks. But you were asking also about Babinski. I'm
Because
so,
it sounds like a name in Russian, not the.
yeah, it looks like a Polish name, right? I think it was developed by Mr. Babinski,
It makes sense.
and he might be from Poland. Let's see. I should probably. Oh, right. Is they even have it on humans still too? So here we go. I forget. Hopefully the nurse will give us some good infos. The doll's eye one is still a mystery.
Hey everyone, it's Sarah, registered nurse RN.
She's excited today. That's okay.
.com, and in this video, I'm going to be going over the plantar reflex. What I'm going to do for you is
Really?
I'm going to go over the basics about this reflex, and then I'm going to
Is it about the
demonstrate
baby,
for you
though?
on a person what a
No.
positive and negative plantar reflex.
It's basically when you rub with their foot, they kind of like grasp. So maybe that's what I want as newborn. God, that's a long video to tell you at the Babinski.
So we got it right
Okay.
here.
Baby. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any common names in Russia?
What?
Like, I mean, common like names. Like your name is Adia, so is that a common name?
No. You have Ivan, Maria, like this kind of, which is the most popular for men.
Oh, okay.
I just yeah, sure, you may ask me. I'll try to help you.
Like the Babinski name. Who knows what Mr. Babinski.
Excited to get our visitors back into the galleries.
It feels great to see art in person. The only reason I come
Do they always have these no skip your ads commercials on YouTube? I hate it.
Everyone, this is Sarah, registered nurse RN. And in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to assess the Babinski reflex in a newborn. This is seen when the bottom of the foot is stroked from the heel upward along the outward part of the foot. So what's going to happen with this, you will see the big toe dorsiflex,
They do
so
work.
it's going to bend backwards. And the other toes are going to fan out or spread out. And this is what you want to see in an infant. Now, in an adult, you do not want to see this response. I actually have a video where I show you what a normal and abnormal Lipinski reflex is in an adult, and you can check that video out if you're interested. And this tends to disappear, this type of response, around about 1 year of age. Okay, so that wraps up this video.
And I really wish you would say why, because some of them like explain why we have it. I'm sure it is in our book, but these are all things so the doctor, and you could be a social worker at a hospital with the doctor, they're testing to see the brain function is normal. So when they do all these, and I think they still do the knee. You ever go to the doctor and they do your knee and just seeing you have normal involuntary reactions. And that's, if there isn't, it could show paralysis, it could show brain development stuff. So they're doing all those tests just to make sure you're not messed up. And if you really, really like the newborn assessments head to toe, you can see, well, yeah, when our baby was born, I feel like we had a doctor come and do all that weird stuff. And with men, they circumcise them. So our boy had to get circumcised. I guess you don't have to, but it's supposed to be more clean and better for the baby. So when my wife puts the baby to sleep, like every single night, that's why it's funny that it pops up. I get to hear that for 8 hours a night sometimes. I put in headphones so I don't have to hear it. Did they cover tonic neck also? Okay. What was that? It might have been when I walked out, as I forget now. When they turn or something?
Yeah.
Or okay. All right. So they're just making sure, again, your baby is normal development. You can start picking up on autism at like a young age. Anybody have any experience with autism, either in their family, relatives, or friends, or at school somewhere?
Oh, yeah. I think one of my nephews is kind of autistic, but my uncle and his wife are denying all of these things, and it is okay.
Right.
It's normal. Don't even think about it. But he looks a little bit different.
Okay.
Looks a little bit different.
Well, some of the folks that are diagnosed with autism can totally make it through college and everything. It would be like Asperger's syndrome. There's like that spectrum where you may have the lower IQ over here and then like genius autistic over here. And you just have more sensory stuff where you like hold your ears or like.
This movement.
So you'll start getting that. We already kind of covered. So getting pregnant, having a baby. Do you guys have any questions about that stuff? I know it seems like so simple, but there's a lot of details in that. And like, especially if there's fertility issues or, like that's why I even wanted to cover the Creighton method 2 weeks ago, because that shows for, didn't they say women only have 24 hours where they're literally fertile, but it's because the man's sperm lives 5 hours in the womb. You have 5 or 6 days you want to cover. And if you don't want to get pregnant, five days you want to watch out for. Like if you're doing like natural family planning. Baby development, obviously they say it takes 40 weeks, but they count it from your last period as week 1. And that's why you usually get pregnant at week 3. And why most babies are born at like week 39 out here. So like that's exactly 9 months. But as long as they're in there 8 months, their lungs are fully developed. You can be born as early as 21 weeks. And I don't know how many months that is, 5? So you can live outside of the womb at like 3, 4, and 5 months. I think without like a ventilator at about 5 months and a week. Anybody have prematures in your family at all, or like babies? Twins are born prematurely a lot. Because that would be hard to hold 2 freaking.
My brother and sister were born premature.
Were they twins? Yeah, because it's. I mean, could you imagine holding 2 8-pound babies like all day?
I think 22, 23.
Were you old enough to remember?
I was like 10,
Mm-hmm.
11. So yeah, I was in like.
And I bet your mom was like out to here, like, "Hey, good morning."
They
Like,
had to send a little incubator for like I think 3 months. The first 3 months they was in the hospital.
really? Dang. Yeah.
My brother, he had like lung issues and stuff, so yeah.
Yeah, is your
They was,
best,
like, real little.
were they like
2
4 pounds or 5
Like
pounds?
2.
Dang. So they would have been like, did you remember seeing them?
Yeah, I
Were
think
they-
we still got pictures and stuff.
Really? So were they almost like a doll baby, I guess?
Pretty much, yeah.
And they're
Especially my sister, like she was even smaller, like you could see her veins and everything, like she was so small.
And they both survived?
Yeah, they're gonna be in the 5th grade now.
Dang, that is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, so they're usually born early because it is hard as heck to keep the babies inside. If they're in the same sack, it's really hard. Sometimes they're in separate sacks. I forget what that means. Maybe it was 2 eggs that were dropped out. Or they're fraternal, I think that's what it's called, and this like the egg cell split and they're in the same sack. So that's usually when they're born early. We talked about the golden hour. What is that? Did you say?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, so you know, why don't you know that you're pregnant? So some people say I was 7 months pregnant.
Yeah, like how do you not?
They're not paying
You don't get a
attention.
period for 7 months.
I mean, so in your first
Unless
baby,
you're on
right? So you could be on birth control. I hear what you're saying. It is
Sometimes
like,
periods comes even if you're pregnant, and you're like, I have my periods.
or you don't think that it's a period.
Yeah,
Well,
and-
probably not even a period. You just think it is.
Yeah, and you
Right.
can have a lot of health issues that you
Yeah.
won't give it. And if you have like weight problems, you just can't like see the belly with the child, and suddenly you have like, I have an appendix, and the appendix says mama.
Yeah.
That's
One
all.
day pop out in labor.
well, in your first baby, you don't like show right away. Because we got pregnant 3 months before our wedding. We didn't really tell anybody because you're not supposed, people get all pissed. Like your mom's like, I'm gonna smack you. But we did eventually tell them. Because I mean, I was 40 years old, so it's like, come on,
Not
man.
16.
Right. I wasn't a 16-year-old knocking up my high school girlfriend. So we were like, it was fast. We did it on purpose for a reason. We were like open to a child, and she didn't show. So like, and it's because your uterus hasn't been fully expanded yet. Your second baby, though, she like this year she showed right away. It was like 2 months, but the only thing she had to change for the wedding dress was like her bust, because your bust does change, and like we had to go to the tailor and get it all fixed, and then went to her brother is a Catholic priest, so we got to go to confession the day before the wedding. Like, sorry, Father, we sinned, we got a baby. So, he was awesome. He's like, God bless you. He's like, dude, that's awesome. He was excited. He's like, you're still not supposed to have premarital sex. So we went to confession. That was kind of our story. We were like excited about it, and they had me do the golden hour too, which is where you hold the baby on your skin and you don't wash all the bad bacteria off. I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but you don't want to wash the baby right away.
Russia like took a wet towel and we like tried to get out some of these
Really?
terrible things.
So
Yeah.
you've seen a birth in live in Russia?
No, but my mother told me
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
My mother's-
Right. Interesting. I wonder if like you could search that too. So like,
Because usually there is a lot of things on it.
well, there's the placenta, baby first hour. Gosh, what do I want to search? Like the bacteria? Because you want to keep the good bacteria. It's like supposed to be, that's baby first aid. That's not what I'm looking for. But I mean, they're covered in some nasty stuff like gunk. Have you ever seen one and like the baby is, did that thing get attacked by a porcupine? Well, cleaning their eye. I don't know. What would you call it? Like baby firstborn, maybe bacteria, something that's
People have a lot of very creepy videos.
right. I know it's not, but have you guys seen it? They got like that white crap all over them. It's like mucus. It looks gross, but you don't want to wash it off. It's actually like maybe with just a wet towel, but you don't want to take like antibacterial soap and scrub it off because that's important for the baby. Like they even have done research studies, and it's actually, what the heck? All right. Well, so you can have some birth defects. That's So anyway, yeah, you're right. We're gonna just get weird videos. What is this stuff called though? Maybe just mucus on a baby after birth. Because that's really what it is. It's just mucus. And mine had so many in his lungs, they had to like suck it out. So he was, at first I'm like, dude, is he breathing? As I hear him go like, and like stop. And I freaked out. They're like, he's fine, he's fine. And that's probably a good example. It has the white stuff all over him. And you don't want to take that off, is kind of the. Uh-oh. That's what they look like. Is this in India too?
The color of the babies usually is terrifying.
Yeah.
They're like violet.
They're like, dude, get me out of here. So I guess you're right. Yeah, they use like a wet cloth to kind of make it so their airways and their eyes are good. You don't want to get that stuff in their eyes because that could be bad too. But they keep a lot of it on them because it's important for their hands, cord. Oh yeah, I had to cut the cord. That was so weird. It feels, you're like, it just feels creepy. So, and then right after that, they would have the golden hour where you hold them, and then mom, I think they had her breastfeed them right away because like you got to eat. And like you just had your umbilical cord cut, so you're like, dude, I'm hungry, like hook me up. And so the importance of early mother-infant contact has impacted hospital birthing practices, including skin-to-skin and breastfeeding encouragement. And they don't, again, it's like the vaccine. They don't force you to breastfeed, but they heavily recommend that you like breastfeed. You know what I mean?
There's kind of a connection, like if a child doesn't get his mom, he will have like some kind of brain problems, like he won't have the connection.
Yeah,
He will like
right.
feel lost.
Right, yeah. So that even gets into the attachment disorders and stuff like that. Like you want to have a natural attachment, and obviously not all babies can have that. You could have a mom who has died. You could have, yeah, like a car accident. You got to get the baby out real fast and things like that.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So when people talk about like postpartum depression after having a baby, like what is that? What is that?
It is real, and I would say like right now, a great example. Did I tell you guys we had 2 kids in 11 months, 10 months, 3 weeks, and like this morning I was worried my wife was going to be real bad. As I have 4 classes and I have to leave early, and I tried to let them keep on sleeping, and I was like, God, she's going to wake up with both of them crying. So like she almost feels like she's in prison. She even said it yesterday, like, dude, I've got to get out of the house. I'm like, let's go for a drive. So we went to like Chick-fil-A. I'm like, order whatever you want. And that's kind of her break because they're both in the seat and like she doesn't have to hold them. But there's a lot of anxiety with that. There's feelings of anxiety, depression, being overwhelmed, not feeling, like you can care for them, feeling inadequate. It is very normal. So you want to talk about it. You want to get them other resources if needed. And it's, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I was just curious on what exactly like it was.
Yeah.
I'll be hearing about it. I've never really knew what it was.
Right. And some people like they address it as an issue because if it's bad enough, like you could have a mom who wants to end her life or end the baby's life because they're just so stressed out by it. And that's where, as a social worker, we want to connect them with the resources, try to get what we can. Oh yeah, here it is. So, and I'm sure, I know that I use the YouTube way too much, but sometimes just getting like a video description helps me. I don't know if it's helpful to you guys because it's just like, there's a lot with.
Sometimes there's a conflict of what you expect and what is the reality because everybody is saying like, when your mom life is so brilliant, your child will make the sense of your life, and you have a child and what's now?
You really got to take care of it.
Yes.
Like, you got to do all that.
And you understand that it is not so perfect.
That's a whole nother
you
human being.
must do a lot of things. It is not a fairy tale.
Mm-hmm. Was there any of these you guys would want to see? I know they're short, like 3 minutes. I don't know why this one. Well, changes in your body too. So you're just like, I mean, the first one, they had to use these clamps to pull the baby out. So then she had a bunch of tears and they had to sew and
Yeah,
like,
that can tear your vagina too.
Right. right.
Especially if the baby got like this big,
Big head.
And
Yeah.
you're
Like-
small. And
Right.
It doesn't correspond.
Yep.
And when you have a baby, there is a lot of hormones and stuff that your body produces because you have a baby and the baby is gone and your like organism stop producing these things, but you are used to get them and you're like, where are all of
And
them?
you just start.
Yeah.
Well, this is just 3 minutes. So I want to go ahead here because it's just,
We'll let you in on a secret. When it comes to your child's toys, fewer is better. Rather than buying toy after toy when your child gets
I got to tell my wife
they
this.
kids then love it and know exactly what they're going to learn.
We have so much.
I'm a mom of two and I battle with postpartum depression and anxiety. Asking for a friend. What's it like to battle with postpartum depression and anxiety?
So my story began when I turned 30. Within the span of about 11 months, I got married and had a baby. About 6 weeks after I had him, I was having these depressive thoughts. My doctor kind of just told me that it was the baby blues and I would get through it and pushed me aside. I reached back out to my doctor again, probably around 6 months postpartum. Again, my doctor pushed me away. So I, at that point, didn't really know what to do because I thought, I'm making this up, I'm crazy, my doctor doesn't think there's anything wrong, of course he knows best. So I tried everything I could to pull myself out of it. I started working out more, I went back to church and doing whatever I could to basically survive. My son turned 1, I was in a really place, and I find out that I'm pregnant with my second. I had him, and the first 3 months were really, really good. Then everything switched right at 3 months. What changed in 3 months? I was struggling. I was concerned about my ability as a mother. I felt very overwhelmed. I used to call my husband almost every day, screaming at him to come home, like I couldn't take it, I couldn't handle it, I couldn't handle the kids. I think it was about 5-6 months postpartum when I really hit rock bottom. I would think about things like jumping off the balcony and what if I just like slipped down in the bathtub. But I didn't reach out to my doctor at first because I was turned away twice the last time.
When were you finally able to get help?
I called my husband one day while he was at work. I told him I was afraid that I might hurt my child and I didn't want to be here anymore and they would be better off without me. I don't think that he really truly understood how much I was struggling until that phone call. Thankfully, he called right away to a hospital. The psychologist called me. I shared with her on all of the things that were happening. I was very honest. It was very hard to do, but I'm glad I did because if I didn't, I may not be here today.
What was your treatment plan?
The number one thing that they recommended was starting medication. I also had to stay
Oh,
on
crap. Is this an advertisement?
I stayed on the medication for about 6 months.
Doesn't it seem like it?
I don't think like it sounds like
Nobody puts actual medication name.
Yeah, Fallon's medication. I don't know if I've, let's see here. Well, it probably was, but I'll stop it there just because they're going to try to sell us some medication. But it's just, if that, I don't know if that kind of breaks it down a little bit better, but I saw a mattress at Sam's yesterday. A king size, only $150 if they, it's all smashed into the box. That sounded cheap. Is that like a piece of crap or just how much they are nowadays? Sounded really cheap.
Postpartum depression. Postpartum depression is moderate to severe depression in a woman after she has given birth. It may occur soon after delivery or up to a year later. Most of the time, it occurs within the first 3 months after delivery. Causes. The exact causes of postpartum depression are unknown. Changes in hormone levels during and after pregnancy may affect a woman's mood. Many non-hormonal factors may also affect mood during this period. Changes in your body from pregnancy and delivery. Changes in work and social relationships. Having less time and freedom for yourself.
I think that's the biggest one for my wife because, like, she basically, and we've talked about it because she is finishing her degree and she'd like to be a nutritionist, but I'm like, would you rather go back to work? Because a lot of people in America, both mom and dad work and the babies go to like childcare, and she just doesn't want to do that, if that makes sense. She doesn't want anybody else watching her kids. So, but yesterday she's like, I know, I just saw it. Like she was just kind of like, just like the affect of her face. And I'm like, are you okay? She's like, I got to get out of the house. So we like went over to my mom's, and actually my sister was there with her 3 kids. And one of them she had a few months before our daughter, which is our first. And it seemed okay, but I know that until
And what if I just get like a babysitter sometimes?
we do try that, which we got a teenager, and she actually said the teenager totally sucked because they were just texting all the time, and like she's like, I could do it myself, and we were paying them $10 an hour, which sounds cheap, but it starts adding up. It's like hundreds of dollars to.
Isn't there a tradition to give children to grandparents?
Kind of, there is, and that's actually some of my research. It's called grandparents, GPGs, grandparents caring for grandchildren. And there is, with Corona, it's gone down a little bit though, because they're like afraid of like killing grandma and grandpa, or nowadays grandma and grandpa are still working because nobody has money to retire. You know what I mean? So like nobody has time anymore. But yes, ideally, I like the only people that will help for free might be your mom and dad as your grandparents.
I was raised with my grandmother.
Right. Yeah. Yep. That's exactly the research we're kind of presenting in this conference.
It takes the village. So.
It does. It does. So, but this is, I don't know how many others they list, but
Lack of sleep.
that's a huge, I mean, last night she said like she'll sleep, and every 2 hours she's got to feed James, and I'll try to help, but she tries to let me sleep so I can come into work.
About your ability to be a good mother. You may have a higher chance of postpartum depression if you are under age 20,
Yeah.
currently use alcohol, take illegal substances, or smoke.
That's probably true too, is you can't do that as much when you're breastfeeding or pregnant. So if your coping mechanism is like getting wasted and smoking a joint, it's like, all right, now I'm breastfeeding, I can't like feed my baby this THC and alcohol. And so that's, you could give them formula.
Baby did not plan the pregnancy or had mixed feelings about the pregnancy. Had depression, bipolar disorder, or an anxiety disorder before your pregnancy. Or
Right.
had a stressful event during the pregnancy or delivery.
I think for her, it was those clamps, because she couldn't sit for like 3 months. So, and then you get tired carrying the baby around all day, and she had to sit on, they have like these pillows that are kind of like U-shaped, and then that way you sit, it's like a toilet seat. So I think that didn't help, and they give a long list.
Including personal illness, death or illness of a loved one, a difficult or emergency delivery, premature delivery, or illness or birth defect in the baby. Have a close family member who has had depression or anxiety. Have a poor relationship with your significant other. Or
That
single.
definitely would not help. Is like if you have a dude like shut up and get over yourself or something, it's not going to help you much, and even family members, she has some of her sisters, I don't know. There's so many family dynamics that go into having a baby, just like opinions and how to raise them and all that too. So hopefully that gives you kind of a long list of, money problems can do it, because then you can't pay for a babysitter. You know what I mean? Even if you make normal money, and it's just hard to come up with an extra 100 a week, and that would only be 2 hours a day for 5 of those weekdays. So you'll feel moody and irritable, losing interest in outside activities and things of that nature. I guess they give you an MRI to give you, to check on it, but like check your brain activity and stuff like that. So she does do the baby wearing, but sometimes the dude gets pissed off that it's like a wrap, and then you hold the baby there. He doesn't like it very much. So that's another crappy part of it. And we saw this about support and stimulation, like when the babies aren't given that stimulation, their brain development, the first 3 months and especially year, the brain has so many neurons and connections and like, you got to give them that stimulation. And if a parent's suffering from alcoholism or addiction and they're passing out every night and the baby's just sitting there hungry, that's when brain development can be stifled. So that's kind of why they push this. There are some intervention programs. So as social workers, we would provide support, education, encourage prenatal care, which decreases the risk of abuse. Even cultural differences among newborns. So African Americans versus white or Latino babies. Would you guys, off the top of your head, think of different ways, even in Russia, how babies are cared for differently in America? Have you seen anything, or how the white communities or Hispanic or African American communities are different?
I wouldn't say newborns, like babies, but I'd say actually raising them.
Okay, right. Okay.
And they're toddlers. Like the newborns, you just try not to drop it, and that's all you do.
Right. Well, so I'll think of one. My mom and dad in their generation, my wife always held the baby, and if she cried, she would hold it. And my parents are like, let her cry, like leave her over there. She's going to be okay. And like my wife's like, no, I don't want her to cry. I don't
See,
want to.
I learned in my, because I'm a psychology major, and we're kind of talking about, it's like human and growth development. That's the class I'm taking too. And they said like if you just let the baby cry, it'll teach them to like not trust people because like they're not getting that support they need at that time.
Right.
Because crying is all like they can't talk. So,
Right. Yeah. So that my wife and that it's really exhaust her. I try to help as much as I can, and then also work a lot. Like it's challenging, but that was one difference, even just generationally. We're both from like I think even her mom started saying like, just let them cry themselves to sleep.
It was like kind of a philosophy of raising child, because if you like let them cry, they won't be like these guys who people who are like, I want this, I want this, I want that, and they don't like think that they can like get everything they want.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
Strict parent strategy.
Right. Which I can see that at like a little bit older of an age, and and the newborn, there are some research that like if they cried for too long, it might create too much cortisol and their brain development is thrown off by it. We are in the largest Midwestern Midwest, like which is like Ohio and Iowa and all those spaces. We have very high infant mortality. So we've even had government funded programs to get rid of the